You may buy the world, yet remain a slave inside your own mind. Sigmund Freud. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. A human being is born not into freedom, but into a system. From the first breath, there are hands ready to shape, voices to direct, rules to obey. The cradle is surrounded by invisible walls. They are soft at first. Lullabies, smiles, gentle corrections. But over time, they harden. They turn into orders, expectations, guilt. And this is how the market of freedom begins. Freedom is traded early for a smile from a parent, a good grade, a pat on the back. The child learns quickly. Being yourself is risky. Being accepted is safe. So he begins to cut off pieces of himself, hide his wildness, smooth his edges. He learns to please, to adjust, to survive. And slowly, the lie becomes a habit. The system rewards obedience. The more you conform, the more you receive. Security, money, respect. But every deal comes with a cost. And here, the price is silence. The silence of the real self, locked somewhere deep inside, behind layers of masks. The empire of illusions is elegant. It offers shiny roles. The successful one, the smart one, the nice one, the humble one. Each role comes with rules, with benefits, with praise. But none of them is real. They are costumes. Some wear them for so long, they forget their own skin. And it seems like freedom. After all, you can choose your costume. You can even switch between them. Play the rebel on weekends, the achiever on weekdays, the lover at night. But the stage is still the same. The light's blind. The script is written. And behind the scenes, fear. Because real freedom is not comfort. It's not applause. It's not even choice. Real freedom is raw. It's the moment when nothing protects you from yourself, when you stand naked before your own truth. And this is what most people run from. So they build higher walls, more noise, more distractions, work, entertainment, relationships, anything to avoid silence. Because in silence, the whisper begins. The whisper of the self. The one that remembers, the one that still feels the chains even if they're made of gold. The most dangerous prison is the one you decorate yourself, where you laugh, succeed, make plans, where no one tells you you're not free, because they're not free either. It's a shared illusion, a collective dream, and waking up is betrayal. But there is a crack. There's always a crack, a moment of stillness, a word that hits too hard, a glance in the mirror that lasts too long, and something shifts. Doubt creeps in. The mask slips, the air changes, and the empire of illusions begins to tremble. This is where the story begins. Not with glory, not with strength, with discomfort, with the itch that something isn't right, that maybe the life you've built is not yours, that maybe freedom was never out there, that maybe, just maybe, you've been asleep. You don't feel the chains until you try to move. You don't feel the cage until you want to fly. But once you feel it, even for a second, you can't unfeel it. And from that moment, nothing will ever taste the same. Not success, not praise, not comfort. Because you've seen the bars. And now, they see you. They taught you to be good, to smile at the right time, speak politely, follow the rules. They taught you that anger is dangerous, desire is shameful, and sadness is weakness. So you buried it all, deep. You locked away the screams, the wild urges, the parts of you that didn't fit. You called it growing up. You called it becoming a person. But a part of you never agreed. A part of you watched from the dark. This part has no name in polite society, but it exists. Jung called it the shadow. Freud saw it in dreams, in slips of the tongue, in symptoms that made no sense. It's everything you were told to hide: your rage, your lust, your selfishness, your power. You didn't kill it. You just learned to look away, and it learned to wait. The shadow doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't argue. It watches, and sometimes it moves. In your quiet moments, in your sudden reactions, in those flashes when you say, "I don't know what came over me." It came over you. It was always there. You work hard to be in control, to be nice, to be good. But the shadow is not interested in being good. It's interested in being whole. It remembers what you forget. It carries the pain you denied, the power you rejected, the fire you tried to put out. And it knows, until you face it, you'll never be free. Most people spend their lives avoiding the shadow. They numb it with substances, bury it under schedules, silence it with distractions. But it doesn't die. It waits. And the more you deny it, the stronger it grows. Not in light, but in distortion, in projection. You see it in others. The rude, the selfish, the loud. You judge them, hate them, distance yourself from them, never seeing that what you hate is your own reflection. Every mask you wear creates distance. Every lie you tell yourself splits you further. You think it's strength, but it's fracture, a person cut in half. The shadow doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to join you, not to ruin your life, to give it back. When you stop running and look into the shadow, you don't find a monster. You find the child you were before the world told you who to be. You find the warrior you silenced, the lover you were ashamed of, the voice you buried. And something strange happens. It stops being scary. It starts feeling familiar. The moment you turn toward the shadow, things begin to change. The truth burns. It strips away illusions. But underneath there's something solid, something real. The shadow becomes an ally, a guide, not because it makes you perfect, but because it makes you whole. This is not a theory. It's not a metaphor. It's an inner experience. It doesn't happen all at once. It comes in waves, in moments of clarity, of pain, of unbearable honesty. But with each step, something returns. Integrity, vitality, depth. You begin to recognize yourself in the mirror again. The world doesn't teach this. The world rewards masks, but you can't breathe through a mask forever. At some point you have to choose, comfort or truth, numbness or life, approval or soul, and the shadow waits for that choice. It doesn't demand, it doesn't punish, it simply waits, because it knows. One day, you'll come back. People don't fear chains. They fear uncertainty. Real freedom is terrifying. It offers no guarantees, no instructions, no saviors. That's why control feels safer. Predictable pain feels better than chaotic possibility. The systems we live in know this. That's why they offer rules. Be good, work hard, follow the line, and you'll be protected. Protected from what? From the raw, burning intensity of choice, from the ache of not knowing, from the storm of truth. And so, without even realizing it, people choose control. They bow to systems, religions, ideologies. They offer their minds, their time, their bodies, in exchange for structure. It doesn't matter what the structure is, as long as it gives the illusion that someone, somewhere, knows what's going on, that someone's in charge, that there's meaning in the machine. But machines don't care. Institutions don't feel. Governments don't love you. They function. They demand. They survive. And people feed them their lives, hoping to receive something solid in return. But what they get is numbness. A numbness disguised as peace. You don't scream when you're numb. You don't rebel. You don't search. You just keep moving in circles, mistaking repetition for purpose. Control wears many faces. Some are obvious. Military uniforms, corporate structures, laws carved in stone. Others are subtle, polite routines, internalized voices. habits you never chose. But they all serve the same God, the God of certainty. And certainty is the enemy of growth. Because real growth means risk, means failure, means falling apart to find something deeper. But the world punishes falling. It worships perfection, performance, polish. So people hide. They control their image, their words, their emotions. They become brands, not beings. And inside, something withers. The soul doesn't care about control. The soul wants depth, chaos, truth. The soul speaks in symbols, in longings, in sudden tears that come out of nowhere. And when you ignore it for too long, it rebels. That's when the breakdown comes. That's when the life you built starts cracking. Not because you failed, but because you obeyed too much. The illusion of control is seductive. It whispers, if you do everything right, nothing will hurt. But that's a lie. Pain is not the enemy. It's the message. It's the moment the soul says, enough. And that moment is sacred. It's the beginning of something wild, something real. When the illusion shatters, it hurts. The lies crumble. The scaffolding collapses. You stand there exposed, shaking, furious. But behind the anger, there's something else. A breath, a pulse, a voice that was silent for too long. That voice doesn't want a map. It wants space. It doesn't want answers. It wants truth. Not polished truth. Raw, trembling, inconvenient truth. And once you hear it, you realize you were never in control. Not really. You were managed, conditioned, tamed. And now you're waking up. You see how deep the programming goes. How much of your life was spent trying to be acceptable. And for what? For the illusion of safety. But safety is not the same as being alive. Being alive is risky, messy, holy, and control, no matter how shiny, will never give you that. It can't, because it's made to keep you small. Real freedom begins when you stop pretending, when you stop saying I'm fine and start saying I'm lost, when you stop holding on and start letting go. It's not easy, it's not clean, but it's real. And in a world full of plastic perfection, real is revolutionary. He wasn't a bad man. He paid his taxes, smiled at strangers, held doors open. He worked hard, wore clean shirts, answered emails on time. People called him responsible, reliable, successful. He had what others envied: a stable job, a decent home, polite children, a calendar full of plans. And still, every night when the noise faded, something inside him tightened. A cold silence, a distant ache, a question he never dared to finish. He told himself it was normal. Everyone's tired, everyone compromises. But deep down, he knew. He had sold something vital, not all at once, not in a single deal. No devil, no signature, no crossroads, just slow erosion. The kind that happens over years. He gave up poetry for a paycheck, traded risk for routine, silenced wonder in exchange for logic, chose a marriage of comfort over love that burned. And every time he chose safety, he felt a part of him shrink. But he told himself it was fine. That's what adults do. They adapt. They survive. They grow up. So he built a life of quiet agreements. A house that looked like a magazine. Conversations full of weather and work. Smiles that never reached the eyes. A calendar that told him who to be and when. And people praised him, called him a role model, a good man, a strong man. But strength without soul is just stone. He couldn't sleep, not really. He lay there, body still, mind racing, remembering the younger version of himself, the boy who dreamed big, who wanted to write books, travel the world, live wildly. That boy was buried under layers of responsibility, and on some nights, the man could still hear him screaming. He tried everything to silence it. New hobbies, new gadgets, weekend trips. But the scream grew louder, because the truth doesn't go away. It waits. And it waited until the day he was offered freedom. It didn't come with fireworks, just a simple opportunity. A chance to quit, to leave, to change, to start over. His heart raced, his hands shook, and then he said no. He told himself it wasn't practical, that it was too late, that he had obligations, but the truth was simpler. He was afraid of being nobody, afraid of the blank page, afraid of losing the identity he had spent decades building. Even if that identity was a cage, he stayed. He kept waking up to the same mornings, drinking the same coffee, smiling the same smile, and no one noticed. No one saw the man collapsing behind his eyes, because collapse doesn't always look like chaos. Sometimes it looks like routine, like order, like success. He died slowly, not on the outside, on the inside. The death of spark, of wonder, of wildness. And no one mourned, because no one knew. He had been dead for years before his heart ever stopped. The tragedy wasn't in the death, it was in the choice. The moment he had the door open, the sun shining, the way clear, and he turned away. Not because he couldn't, but because he didn't believe he deserved it. Because the cage had become home. Because the idea of freedom felt heavier than the weight of his chains. That's how it happens, not with drama, but with small betrayals of the self. One yes when you meant no. One smile when you wanted to scream. One day after another of being almost alive. Until one day, you forget the taste of freedom. You forget the sound of your own voice. You forget who you were before the world told you who to be. And worst of all, you stop looking. You stop hoping. You stop hearing the knock on the door. You start guarding your prison like it's a treasure, and call it responsibility. Call it maturity. Call it success. But deep down, something still remembers. And when no one's watching, you cry. Not because of pain, but because you know. You know what you could have been, what you still could be. If only you had the courage to walk away. If only you hadn't sold the one thing that mattered. If only you had chosen truth over comfort. If only you had chosen yourself. Awakening isn't beautiful. It's violent. It's the earthquake that splits the ground beneath your perfectly arranged life. It's the night you can't sleep because something inside you is breaking and you don't even know why. It starts slowly. A restlessness, a numbness, a sense that nothing really matters the way it used to. You try to ignore it, drown it in habits, pretend everything's fine. But the crack widens. The mask begins to itch. The applause no longer satisfies. The comforts turn stale. And one morning, you wake up and feel like a stranger in your own life. The job you once chased feels hollow. The people around you seem distant. The mirror doesn't lie anymore. You're not who you pretended to be, and pretending is no longer an option. This is the moment it begins. The shedding, the burning, the collapse. Not because you want it, but because you can't keep holding up the lie. You try to explain, but there are no words. The world likes clean stories, linear growth, polished answers. But awakening is chaos. It's grief for the self you abandoned. It's rage at the systems that shaped you. It's shame, guilt, fear, all rising to the surface at once. And it hurts. Not like a wound on the skin, but like your entire being is splitting open. Because it is. You're breaking the version of you that was built to survive. The polite, controlled, palatable version. The one who followed rules, sought approval, smiled on cue. That version can't come with you, and letting go of it feels like dying. No one warns you about this part, about the loneliness, the disorientation, the nights where you curl into yourself shaking, not knowing who you are anymore. There's no guidebook, no map, only the raw, silent truth that the life you built was never really yours. You begin to see clearly the patterns, the programming, The lies you swallowed because they were easier than the truth. You realize how many of your dreams weren't yours. How much of your identity was inherited, conditioned, borrowed, and the grief is overwhelming, because now you know. And once you know, you can't go back. You can try. Many do. They try to stitch the old life back together, go through the motions, wear the mask again. But it never fits the same. The soul doesn't forget, the eyes don't unsee, and the pain of pretending becomes unbearable. So you keep walking, through the fire, through the wreckage, through the nights when everything feels lost, and slowly, something begins to shift. A voice, faint but steady. A presence you haven't felt in years, your own. Not the version molded by others, but the raw, wild core that's always been there. You begin to speak with honesty, not because it's brave, but because it's impossible not to. You begin to move with intention, not to impress, but to feel. You start listening, not to the noise of the world, but to the quiet pull within. The awakening doesn't end in light. It begins in darkness. It's not a climax. It's a rebirth. And like all births, it's messy, painful, sacred. You bleed, you cry. You lose things you thought you couldn't live without. But in the space they leave behind, something new grows, something real. You begin to rebuild, not from fear, but from truth. Each step is fragile, uncertain, but it's yours. You learn to trust your instincts again. You stop explaining yourself. You stop asking for permission. You begin to notice beauty in strange places, in silence, in solitude, in broken things. You begin to feel alive, not all at once, not every day, but in flashes. And those flashes grow, until one day, you realize the pain was never punishment. It was passage. It was the soul shaking you awake. It was the scream beneath the silence, the fire beneath the skin, the truth breaking through the surface. It was everything you needed, because you're not here to survive. You're here to live. And living begins the moment the lie ends. There's a voice inside. It doesn't shout. It doesn't fight. It waits. It's been there since the beginning, quiet beneath the noise, buried under layers of obedience, fear, and distraction. You heard it once, long ago, maybe when you were a child staring at the sky, or alone in the dark, feeling something vast and nameless. But then life got louder. Schedules, rules, screens, expectations. The voice faded into the background. You stopped listening, not because you didn't want to, but because the world taught you to ignore it. They called it nonsense, imagination, immaturity. But it wasn't. It was the real you, before you were broken into pieces that fit into boxes. Before your fire was tamed, your curiosity dulled, your wildness trimmed into neat lines. The voice never left. It whispered when you were about to make a choice that didn't feel right. It tugged at your chest when you said yes but meant no. It filled your stomach with unease when you betrayed your truth. You called it doubt. You called it fear. But it was always you. The deepest part, the untouched part. And no matter how long you ignore it, how far you drift from yourself, it doesn't die. It waits. Sometimes for years. Sometimes for decades. And then one day, in a moment of stillness, it returns. Maybe in the middle of the night. Maybe in the middle of a meeting. Maybe while brushing your teeth. It doesn't ask for attention. It simply reminds you, you're still here. You haven't disappeared. You're just buried. And if you stop, even for a second, you can hear it. Not with your ears, with your bones, with your skin, with that aching place behind your ribs that no one touches. The voice doesn't tell you what to do. It doesn't give answers. It doesn't promise success. It offers something more dangerous. Truth. Raw. unfiltered, and often inconvenient. Because once you hear it, you can't unknow it. You can't pretend anymore. You can't keep living the life you've outgrown. You can't keep smiling through the wrong job, the wrong relationship, the wrong everything. The voice doesn't destroy, it reveals. It holds up a mirror you can't look away from. And what you see is both terrifying and beautiful. The version of you that never stopped believing. The version that still wants more. Not more stuff, more soul, more presence, more meaning. But meaning doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It comes with risk, with loss, with becoming unfamiliar to the people who liked you better asleep. And that's the cost. You will lose things, people, roles, identities. You will lose the fake piece of fitting in. But what you gain is worth everything. You gain alignment. You gain clarity. You gain the unshakable sense that you're not acting anymore. You're not performing. You're simply being. And that is power. Not the kind that dominates. The kind that doesn't need to. The kind that stands rooted, even when the world trembles. You begin to make decisions not from fear, but from knowing. You begin to speak words that feel alive in your mouth. You begin to move in ways that feel like prayer. You stop asking for validation. You stop chasing approval. You stop betraying yourself for the sake of comfort. The voice keeps guiding you, not always gently. Sometimes it tears through illusions like a storm. Sometimes it leaves you trembling in the dark. But even in the trembling, you know, this is real. This is you. No more scripts. No more pretending. Just breath. Just skin. Just the wild pulse of your own truth. And slowly, the outside starts to shift. Not because you tried to change it, but because you changed. You attract different people. You see through old games. You stop settling. You start choosing. And each choice brings you closer to the life you were always meant to live. Not the life they sold you, but the life your soul remembers. This voice will not be silenced. Not forever. You can distract yourself for a while. You can drown it in noise, in work, in relationships, in whatever helps you forget. But forgetting is not freedom. And eventually, the voice returns. Not to punish, to remind that you're not lost. You're not broken. You're just buried. And now, you're waking up. Freedom has been repackaged, marketed, sold back to you in bright colors with catchy slogans. Be yourself. Live your truth. Choose your path. But the choices are pre-selected. The paths are paved. The selves they offer you come with hashtags and templates. So you choose your outfit, your belief system, your online persona, and you feel free. But it's not freedom. It's a performance. It's a curated self designed for attention, not authenticity. You think you're choosing, but your choices have been shaped by algorithms, trends, and fear. Fear of being invisible, fear of rejection, fear of being too much or not enough. So you scroll, compare, shape-shift. You consume freedom like a product and wonder why it never satisfies. Because real freedom doesn't come with likes. It doesn't flatter the ego. It threatens it. It asks you to question everything, even the parts of yourself you thought were solid, especially those parts. It asks what you've inherited without knowing, what you believe because someone told you it was true, what you pursue because someone said it mattered, and it burns. Because most of your identity wasn't chosen. It was copied, modeled after parents, teachers, screens, systems. Even rebellion gets co-opted. They sell you tattoos and leather jackets and call it individuality, but underneath it's the same machine, same hunger for approval, same need to belong. So you blend, even as you try to stand out. You seek safety in uniqueness, not realizing that real uniqueness isn't safe. It isolates, it confronts, it disrupts. And that's the paradox. Everyone wants to be different, but not too different. Everyone wants to be free, but not if it means being alone. And so we settle for the middle, a life that looks free but feels tight, a voice that sounds confident but trembles, a heart that wants to scream but whispers. This is the pseudo-self, the version of you built to survive, not to live. It knows how to play roles, how to blend, how to succeed in a world that punishes depth. But it's not you, not really, and you can feel it. In the quiet, in the mirror, in those sudden moments where everything feels hollow, where you ask yourself, is this it? And there's no answer. That's the beginning, the moment the pseudo-self starts to crack. And what's underneath isn't polished. It's not ready for social media. It's raw, awkward, tender, honest. It doesn't always know what it wants. It doesn't speak in slogans. It speaks in long silences, in tears you can't explain, in the pull toward something real. That's the self that was buried. The self that doesn't need to impress, that doesn't need to win, that just wants to feel, to connect, to breathe. And reclaiming it isn't glamorous. It means saying no when everyone expects yes. It means walking away from things that still sparkle. It means disappointing others, and sometimes yourself. But in that disappointment, there's truth. And truth is freedom. Not the kind they sell, the kind that grows in the dark. In discomfort, in quiet rebellion, you stop asking, who should I be? And start asking, who am I when no one's watching? You stop performing, even when the stage is full. You stop needing to be understood, because you're finally listening to yourself. And what you hear isn't perfect. It's messy, conflicted, human. But it's real, and real is enough. Slowly, the pseudo-self fades. Not all at once. It clings, resists, fights to stay relevant. But each time you choose honesty over image, presence over performance, silence over noise, it loses power, and you gain something else, a kind of groundedness, a kind of quiet fire, a kind of unshakable knowing that you're not for sale, that your truth doesn't need branding, that your life isn't a campaign. It's a flame, and no one else gets to shape it but you. It doesn't happen in a flash. It doesn't come with fireworks or revelation. It's quiet, almost ordinary. One day you simply stop running. You sit with yourself, really sit, and feel the full weight of everything you tried to outrun. The shame, the guilt, the fear, the longing. You let it all rise. You stop fighting, stop fixing, stop distracting. And in that stillness, something shifts. Not outside, inside. A soft, steady knowing that you don't need to be anything else. That you've spent a lifetime chasing a version of yourself that never truly existed. The strong one, the nice one, the achiever, the one who had it all together. And none of it was real. It was armor. It kept you safe. It helped you survive. But survival isn't the same as living. And now you're done surviving. You want more, not more things, more soul, more depth, more silence that feels alive. So you strip away the layers one by one, and underneath the noise, the masks, the performances, there you are, imperfect, wounded, glorious, not a brand, not a role, a being, with edges, with history, with truth. You stop asking for permission to exist. You stop apologizing for your presence. You stop needing to be understood, because you finally understand yourself. Not fully, not completely, but enough. Enough to breathe without shame, enough to walk without shrinking, enough to choose yourself, even when the world doesn't. And it's not dramatic. You still go to work. You still wash the dishes, but everything feels different, because you're no longer split in two. You're no longer betraying the voice within. You're no longer negotiating your own truth, and people notice. Some pull closer, some drift away. You let them. You stop managing other people's perceptions. You stop translating your soul into a language they'll accept. You speak clearly, move slowly, love honestly. Not because it's easy, because it's real. You cry more, not out of weakness, out of contact. You feel more. The trees look different. The sky opens wider. Your body becomes a home, not a burden. You look in the mirror and see someone worth returning to. You still make mistakes. You still forget. But now, you remember faster. You forgive deeper. You begin again with softness, not punishment. You trust the timing of your own becoming, and somewhere along the way, you realize, this is freedom, not the loud kind, not the kind that needs to be proven, the quiet kind, the kind that hums beneath your skin, the kind that doesn't shake when things fall apart, because you're no longer afraid of endings. You've lived through so many. Each one stripped you down, cracked you open, brought you closer to yourself. And now you know. Loss isn't the enemy. Pretending is. Silence isn't the threat. The wrong noise is. Loneliness isn't the curse. The wrong company is. You stop chasing peace and start being peace. You stop chasing meaning and start creating it. You stop running from the fire and realize you are the fire. The truth doesn't scare you anymore. You faced it, loved it, let it burn what needed to burn, and what remains is unshakable, not perfect, not untouchable, but anchored, alive, true. And from this place, you walk differently, you speak differently, you live differently, not because you're trying, because you're done trying. You've come home, and now you stay. Freedom isn't loud. It doesn't knock down doors or shout from rooftops. It sits quietly inside the chest, steady and still. It's not a rebellion. It's a return, not a war, a remembering. You don't chase it. You uncover it. Strip away the lies, the noise, the fear, and there it is. Simple, unshakable, yours. No one can give it to you. No one can take it away, because it's not outside. It's not a place or a moment. It's a state of being, a truth lived. And once you taste it, really taste it, nothing else will satisfy. Not approval, not comfort, not success. Only the quiet power of knowing who you are, and finally choosing to be that. Without apology, without disguise, without price. We're sure you've discovered plenty of value. So subscribe now and stay connected.